Good evening, everyone. We're going to start a meeting in a minute. Please stand. Please.
We were there 4 minutes.
This is the February 26th meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee. We will be having a moment of silent meditation. But before we have that moment, we lost a valuable member of our community over the last 2 weeks. And I would be refrained if I didn't have our president say a few words about Brian Shannon.
Yeah, I got a call, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Somebody else was in the hospital. Brian was across the hall. And they told me he wasn't doing well. And it was a shock to everybody because it was at the last APA meeting. It was that quick. He passed away. I don't remember the date. It was probably last Monday or so. The funeral was today. We haven't had a meeting to really put it out there. But just to give everybody an idea, Brian was is how I explained it today at the funeral, the loud person that is sitting right where Todd is sitting now. You always knew Brian was here. He would always get up and give you his opinion. He did his research. He was a real asset to Upper Moreland, especially with all the redevelopment and stuff. Brian sat on our revitalization task force since 2011 until it was decommissioned in 2021. Then Brian was put on the Transportation Impact Advisory Committee, known as our Act 209 study in 2016. He was on there, and there was supposed to be a year of what the volunteers would do, and Brian and a few others made sure on that committee they had the volunteer work done in 3 months instead of 12. He really just immersed himself when we gave him a task. Then after that committee, that is still an active committee, and he was still on there. And then in 2021, we asked him to be on the planning agency, and after 2 or 3 no's that he kept telling us, we finally convinced him, and he went on there. And from what Paul says, just a great asset to our township. I don't know too many people that would ever put as much time in investigating the things we were doing and speaking his mind without backing down. He was usually correct because he did his homework before he came here to say something. And he just gave us the information. He never argued. So he is going to be greatly missed, especially by Paul Pertel's office. So it's a big loss to the township as our watch person for community development.
May he rest in peace. Moment of silence and meditation. Please rise for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sitting here tonight at the DS, we have Kit McPatrick, our president. We have Anthony Benvenuti, also here. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Anthony Benvenuti. Also in present in the audience, we have our township manager, Matt Canlon, as well as our solicitor, Sean Kilkenny, and also our assistant township manager, John Bates. Gentlemen of the committee, would you approve the minutes from our last meeting of January 29th, please?
Yes, I have no changes.
Any changes, Anthony?
No.
No changes. Okay, the minutes stand as approved. Thank you very much. Now we're getting ready to go into our monthly reports. Tonight we have a guest, instead of Chief Block, we have Lieutenant Jim Kelly to give the report from the police department. Jim, would you give us a report, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. Here to present the January 2024 report. The Memorial Police Department responded to 1,212 calls for service in the month of January. Calls for service. The calls for service between December 2023 and January 2024 indicate a flat increase in volume. The monthly police department call volume was down 12% between January 2023 and January of 2024. The outlying year-to-date call volume for January 2021, you have 1,107. January 2022, 1,247. January 2023, 1,382. The overall differences between year-to-date, January 21 and January 2024 is an 8% increase in call volume. The following Part 1 crimes were reported and investigated by the Upper Moreland Police in January 2024. We had 1 homicide cleared by arrest, 1 auto theft, and 40 theft offenses, with 21 of those offenses cleared by arrest. Following Part 2 crimes were reported and investigated by the Upper Moreland Police in January 2024. 2 disorderly conduct offenses cleared by arrest, 6 public intoxication offenses cleared by arrest, 8 narcotics offenses cleared by arrest, and 28 other crimes committed and cleared by arrest. Patrol Division conducted the following proactive measures. We have 427 vehicle investigations, 56 hazardous traffic violations, 101 non-hazardous traffic violations, 8 parking complaints with 2 warnings, 6 homeless contacts, 6 DUI investigations. The DUI arrests are broken down. You had 2 between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 4 between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Specifically to the Traffic and Highway Safety Unit, the Traffic Safety Unit conducted the following investigations, activities, and studies during the month of January 2024. The Traffic Safety Unit had 25 calls for service, 4 traffic and parking issues, 3 directed patrols, 181 traffic stops, 122 warnings were issued, 39 hazardous traffic citations were issued, 47 non-hazardous traffic citations were issued, 1 arrest was made, and 2 mix-up investigations. 0 vehicles were placed out of service and 0 drivers were placed out of service. Specifically to the Detective Bureau, the Detective Bureau opened 30 new cases in the month of January. There was 1 homicide investigation, 1 simple assault investigation, 1 sexual assault investigation, 1 corruption of minors investigation, 1 wanted person investigation, 1 missing person investigation, 1 burglary investigation, 1 fire investigation, 2 firearms investigations, 2 threat investigations, 3 fraud investigations, 3 death investigations, 4 intelligence investigations, and 5 child line investigations. 2 investigations I wanted to highlight real quick in reference to that. There was an arson investigation at 616 Davisville Road, JG Transmissions. The Upper Moreland Fire Department and Upper Moreland Police Department responded to a commercial building fire at JG Transmission. After the fire was extinguished, an investigation to the cause and origin was conducted by the Upper Moreland Police Department and the Upper Moreland Fire Department. The video surveillance canvas was completed of the surrounding businesses, and interviews were completed with the business owner. In this investigation, a person of interest was developed that had a common connect with this fire and the fire in Lower Moreland Township that had just occurred. Various search warrants were executed and the suspect was interviewed. The suspect admitted to starting both fires. He was also developed as a suspect in a third fire that occurred on December 28th, 2023, which he later confessed to starting. The second highlighted investigation was a homicide investigation at 301 Fitch. On Sunday, January 14th, the Upper Moreland Police Department Criminal Investigation Unit and the Montgomery County Detective Bureau investigated a homicide that occurred on 301 Fitch Road in the Hatboro section of Upper Moreland. The incident involved an ongoing dispute between two neighbors. The dispute escalated to the point where one neighbor stabbed the other with a large military knife. The victim died as a result of his injuries. The offender was also injured as a result of an accidental self-inflicted stabbing. The case was referred to the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office for charging, and the offender was charged with third-degree murder and related offenses. Are there any questions in relation to those topics?
Thank you very much, Senator Kelly.
Thank you.
Any commissioner comments at this time?
I'll ask you one thing. I've asked the chief and stuff. The calls pre-COVID and now, they're not necessarily a multitude of that many more. But it seems they're all, I'm not going to say more important, more violent, and more serious now. Is that what you see the trend since you've been a detective here since I ever remember? Is that really the difference from, let's say, pre-COVID or 7, 8 years ago? Is there that big of a difference in the type of crimes now?
Yeah, so it definitely says there's an uptick in violent crime. But as you know, we're dealing on a daily basis with a huge uptick of theft and organized retail theft. And that actually parlays into violent crime because they're resisting arrest, they're fleeing those crimes, those organized retail theft cases, and they're putting the public in danger. On an unrelated investigation last week, I had to look up some stats, and I think the 17th of February was the 46th day of the year, and we had 41 responses to in-progress retail theft. So it kind of gives you an idea of the call volume and the amount of man hours that we have to dedicate almost every day to these crimes. It's labor intensive.
Okay.
Any other commissioner comments? Public comments? Okay, thank you very much, Lieutenant Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay, Chief Glassman, your report, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Presenting the report for January 2024, there was a total of 92 calls for service, 72 on the fire side, 20 for EMS calls. Fire permit inspections completed 7, fire fees collected $350, turnpike fees $450. There were 7 fire marshal investigations during the month. Significant incidents on January 9th, we had storm operations with multiple rescues with people continue to drive into the deep water, even around the gates. On 1/9, 430 Newton, we had a hazardous material spill. There's a picture in the report. Oil tank leaked onto the property. And on January 17th, we had a significant fire at 16 Russell. Service for training, 20 personnel, 120 hours. On the emergency management side, we participated in the Montgomery County monthly meeting, also participated in the Eastern Montgomery County meeting, and we did live web EOC training online. And we also had a partial activation of the Emergency Operations Center for the storm on January 9th, 2024. And that concludes my report, pending any questions.
Any commissioner comments for Chief Glassman?
I guess my thing is what I asked every time we have, when we pull together the EOC for a storm or anything like that. Did our personnel show up where they were supposed to? And let's say a post-storm or post-event, was there a report made for yourselves to go over to make sure things were taken care of in the right manner and sequences?
So when I say partial, it's usually the chief of police, Matt Canlin's involved, Dave Elser on the Public Works. We're all communicating generally amongst ourselves, and we always follow up at the monthly managers meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Any public comments? Okay, thank you, Chief Classroom. Tonight, we have a guest also. We have our, from the second alarmist, we have Chris Kaiser. Chris, please read your report.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ken apologizes. He's not back in town yet, so I'll be filling in tonight. So our report for December of 23, 337 calls in the township of Upper Moreland. 164 of those were handled by our Willow Grove station, 123 by our Hapro station, and everything else was handled in between the other two stations. Natures of the call, 302 medicals, 24 vehicle accidents, and 11 fires. Response outcomes, 187 were transported, 45 were handled by mutual aid responses. Receiving agencies, they have 172 that were transported to Abington, with a total 187 transported, and the rest were taken by the local area hospitals and some downtown. For January, we had no Narcan administration for the 31 days. Then he has in here to the September staffing report. For January, we were full ALS staffing for 3,348 hours. January of 24, ALS was actual staffed 331.56. We downgraded to BLS for 36 hours, and we downgraded to no status 156 hours. Compared to January of last year, the ALS actual staffing was 3,149. We downgraded to BLS 158 hours, and then downgraded to no status at 41 hours. Some notable information, the fund drive update in January, $775 was received from the Jenkintown residents for subscriptions and $150 in donations, which is about normal for this time of year. APRO enacted a 0.05 mil ambulance tax starting in 2024. It's in parity with what Abington and Jenkintown now have in place. And Second Alarmers also was awarded $15,000 from the PA Office of the Fire Commissioner's Emergency Services Grant Program. This is going to offset our fuel costs in the recent years. That's all I got.
Any commissioner comments for Chris?
The tax that's going in, do you actually have any direct knowledge of that?
I do not.
Okay, so
and
we
I
go to
will-
Ken and,
I'll have Ken follow up with you on that.
okay, yeah, it's interesting because it's something that most places don't have, which is surprising because we do have the fire tax. and
Right.
Stuff, so, Sean, do you know anything? You're Jenkintown. Have you seen this in many places besides us?
And I've seen this, I live in Jenkintown, my firm represents Jenkintown, although I've not done the meetings there in a couple of years, so I can't say I'm attuned to all of that. But I have seen it in other places. Yeah.
Is there a tough procedure? Is there anything that we have to go through to put that tax in place?
Do you mean the EMS tax or?
Yeah.
what do you mean? So it's interesting. Several of our places have done the EMS tax. Aparo will represent as well. And West Whiteland Township, not for Second Alarmers, but their EMS company there, what they chose to do actually is just put that percentage in the general fund so they have more flexibility. but they related to it and publicized it, that it was basically for EMS services. Obviously, you would just have to advertise it several times, like any other tax. I believe it's 3 times, and it would be, you'd have to get direction from the board to move forward. Wouldn't be able to, I believe, take effect in 2025. That's something you want.
We wouldn't be able to get it in place till two thousand
Well,
twenty-five.
you can put it in place, but you wouldn't be able to collect.
Collect it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something that we should look into when it comes to budget time.
Something I'll have him follow up with everybody with.
Any other commissioner comments for Chris? Any public comments for Chris? Thank you, Chris. We have no old business. We have no new business. So in other words, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Good job. John, yeah, John's good. How much? Just is very rough, very rough. 0.05% mil. What kind of money are we talking if it's? I mean, it's,
I have not. Might be there.
it's like $15 a house.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it that, that's what comes out to? You should definitely look at that.
Definitely.
I mean, we're talking less than $10 a household per year for ambulance service.
Hey, that's, yeah, we should look into it. Definitely. Thank you. And listen, if you want to, you can call in myself and.
Sure, is one.
Okay.
Don't you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for good funeral for.
Oh, yeah. Trash pickup.
I like your response better. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
In typical spirit fashion. He ended up. It had a bunch of. What's he about?
You're not talking about cattle.
Huh?
You're not talking about cattle.
Nah, I don't know.
You are? You really are? He's done that before.
Yeah. Nothing surprised.
What's this? Does this belong to someone? I don't know. Is it? You know what this is?
Oop.
What was it?
Charles is magnified.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I call to order the Finance and Administration Committee. Present, we have to my right Commissioner Ben Olszewski, to my left Commissioner Demond Mullen. And I think the others were already introduced. Are there any presentations or announcements? Okay. Next, approval of the minutes. Are there any commissioner comments on the minutes or questions? Community? None? Okay. We'll move them into the record. Next, review of, or I'm sorry, acceptance and approval of the following monthly reports: Director of Finance, Tax Enforcement Officers, and Investment Activity Report. I don't have any questions or comments on any of those.
I don't either. I'm good.
John, do you have anything to add to any of those?
To any of the reports now, I just want to make mention that, as we had a tax posting about 2 weeks ago, so we're starting to see a greater influx of cash now.
Okay.
Typically in the beginning of the year, for cash flow purposes, trying to make it be for some of these substantial numbers. Okay, so, yeah,
So you're watching the cash every day, huh? Sounds good. Any public community comments or questions? Okay. Next, review of the financial statements, revenue and expense summaries. We've only had a month, but anybody have any comments or anything to say? John?
no, other than that, I'll help them. I knew you asked a couple of questions over the weekend.
Thank you.
Those responses that I provided.
I do not.
No.
Good.
Thank
And thank you for getting that
Yeah, sure.
to us. Community? Okay, we'll move on to personnel. First, we have the reappointment of Maureen Wennick, present here tonight for another community event. As she's Ward 4 representative, being reappointed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council. I absolutely recommend her and thank her for wanting to be reappointed.
I guess I'll second it. She is in Ward 4, so yeah. I'll second
Okay,
it.
good, good. Any
Yep.
community comments?
Second as well.
Okay. We'll move that one forward to the board meeting. Next, we have the reappointment of John Connell on the Historical Commission. I'm in favor of that.
Second.
Another reappointment. Okay, and then we have a new appointment, Christina Richmond. She here? Okay. Let's see. She actually has volunteered for 2 positions, so we thank her for that. It's always good to have new people. And recommend that we move her forward to the board.
Second.
Any community comments? Okay, that's for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council, the at-large position. And she has also volunteered for the Human Relations Commission. So I want to move her forward for that too.
Second.
Any community comments? Okay, another reappointment, or no, another new appointment, Jennifer Watanabe on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council to fill the at-large position. She sent some, she's not here, is she? Okay. She sent information, wanting to do this. She moved to Upper Moreland about 7 years ago. She's very happy here and passionate about our parks and open space. So, I'm happy to move her forward.
Second.
Any community comments? Okay, she's moved forward. And finally, a new appointment, Bali Dots, on the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission. Is she here? Oh, hello. Thank you for coming. Did you want to say anything or just being here? So another new volunteer, which is great. She's already been involved in a lot of other community service things. So thank you. And I recommend we move her forward to the board.
Second.
Any community comments? Okay. Next, we have the following vacancies. One on the Advisory Planning Agency, 2 on the Historical Commission, 1 on the Human Relations Commission, and 1 on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council for a Ward 1 resident. and also on that council for a Ward 2 resident. So if you're interested, please send a letter with your interest, resume if you have it, to Matt Canlin, mcanlin@uppermoreland.org. Okay. Next on the agenda is to discuss the township police station funding options and determine the next steps.
Yeah, this is a continuation of our conversation from last meeting. We have representatives from PFM here again. Since our last meeting, there was a request that we evaluate, or that PFM evaluate the feasibility of having 2 borrowings as opposed to 1. So originally what we talked about was doing a borrowing this spring for the entire amount for whatever the project was that we were going to be doing. So that one question was, well, would it make more sense to do 2 borrowings? And PFM looked at that, and there are some benefits to that, and they're going to be here to discuss those. And also the other housekeeping items that we'll need to do for the borrowing. Some of those are in your meeting book. And really just continue the conversation. If there's any questions that the committee has about the financing.
Good evening. I'm Brad Remick with PFM. With me is Brandy McClendon as well.
Hello.
And we just wanted to make sure we're here to address questions about the analysis. If you'd like me to go through it quickly, I can do that. And then kind of try and answer some questions. I appreciate the feedback in terms of some of the things that were maybe not clear in the analysis or wanted some more explanation. So I'll try and hit on those things as I go through this. In the analysis, there's page numbers on the bottom right-hand side. Page number 2, that's a very colorful chart. And it kind of gives us, if you recall last time, I kind of give you an idea of what the municipal bond market is right now. One thing I wanted to clarify is this chart is an index, okay, of a municipal bond data or BVAL, what we call index over time. When you see some of the numbers that we estimated for the township in terms of borrowing amounts, typically what happens is when the township borrows money, it prices to a spread off the index. So it won't exactly mirror the exact interest rate in the index. It goes as a spread to those based on your credit quality. So the township's a very good credit. So your spreads would be more narrow when you look at the numbers. Whereas if you're somebody's a lower credit, their spreads are wider. It's an addition to the index at the different points along the curve. So I just wanted to clear that up.
So are you saying that it's the first chart on that page?
Yep.
Is that right? So that's the yield without a spread?
Correct.
I
That's
see.
just the market. So if you look at the top chart, there's different data points, year 1 through year 30. And typically what happens when you price a bond is whatever that index is, depending on your credit quality, it's a spread to that. So that's why the numbers you'll see that we've assumed on some of your borrowers are higher than what the index is. We did then on the next couple pages, kind of put together, we got some information from the architect. We talked a little bit about how much money would need to be borrowed, how much interest would be earned over time. And we tried to compare the two scenarios there. Obviously, if you borrow the more money earlier, you're going to earn more interest. For the basis of this analysis, we used a conservative interest rate at 3.5%. We know that something like more like 5 is what you're earning right now. But because we were looking over an 18-month period, we're not here to forecast what the Federal Reserve is going to do, but we didn't want to overestimate those interest earnings just because there could be some action taken by the Federal Reserve that would reduce your earnings because they control short-term rates. And we didn't want to overestimate that, but we do understand that at this point in time, you're earning more than the 3.5 that's in the analysis. But that was the rationale for that. Page number 5, we put the estimated payments for a one-step plan. So when we ran the numbers in January, we had assumed this certain spread in those interest rates, okay? We went back and we looked at what a township in Pennsylvania might price as a spread with more recent data. So we narrowed that spread by about 30 to 35 basis points. So if you were to go back to your January analysis, you would have seen that interest rate be more like 4.4. We tightened that up to 4.1 to be more realistic. So that's kind of what happened, why you see a reduction there from what we presented.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were a little bit more confident for the illustration, at least, to tighten that up.
Yeah, and we're getting closer to when we'd actually go to market,
Right,
right?
so that's what we
Okay.
wanted to do there. So if you're flipping back and forth to January, that's the main thing that occurred there as well. Then what we did, again, we did for the two-step financing. Again, we used the same interest rate on your earnings, 3.5% that we did on the first one for the reason I mentioned earlier. And then we created a new page 8, which kind of lists the payments out for a $10 million financing now and 5 million about a year from now. And those would be, again, as was mentioned, that would let the district or the township's bonds be termed bank qualified. And if I recall, I mentioned last meeting that typically those bank qualified bonds come with two main benefits. The first is typically the spreads that they price off that index are tighter than if you're non-bank qualified. Okay, so that typically it's a tenth, right now it's a tenth to 0.15 or so percent, that it's a little bit tighter. Okay, so that's benefit number one.
Okay, so instead of, for the current numbers here, instead of a 4.12%, you estimate it would be about 4.03%.
4.03 on the first one and 4% on the second one.
If
That's
it's
what we
the
did that.
bank, if it's under $10 million.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The second main benefit is if you do bank qualified bonds, typically the market will accept a shorter call feature. What a call feature is basically your prepayment ability. So if you're able to get to that date sooner, and maybe I should back up, if you do over 10 million, the market typically is more like 8 years. So if that date becomes closer for the township, that gives you the option to do it earlier than if you did the non-bank qualified, as we call it, bonds. So that option would come earlier for you. You don't have to do it. It's just an option that the township would reserve or preserve. So that's a little bit more difficult to quantify in terms of dollars and cents. But rather than having to wait till, rather than having to wait till 2032, the township in 2029, for example, on the first bond would have that option. And you might, with that option, you might want to refinance and lower your interest rate.
Mhm.
You may want to refinance and shorter your repayment term because maybe you have more funds. You know, it's kind of like when you refinance your home mortgage, right? Maybe some people start off at 30 years and then a couple of years into it, go to 15 if they can afford it. So that would be an option there. Or the other option would be in 5 years, you could just simply prepay some or part of it. So it just gives you the option sooner. So that's a more difficult number to put on that, but it's just something that you should be aware of that comes with it. But those are really the only two main things that I can think of for the benefit of the back quad. That's really those two things, is the lower interest rate and so forth. So now one of the things we don't know is if you delay your financing on the last 5 million in a year from now, what's the market going to be like then? Right? You don't know
And
that.
that is a concern.
That
I
is-
mean,
that
we
is-
hope that it'll be better, but
Yep. And
It's a
one of the
risk.
things, I don't know if I mentioned in January or not, is that right now, we have seen interest rates in the municipal bond market decline since Halloween. It bounced up a little bit here after the first of the year. Maybe it went down about 125 basis points or 1.25%. It's now bounced up about 0.25 or another 0.25% bounced back up. And the main reason that we understand that is occurring is that the market is forecasting the moves by the Federal Reserve for later this year. Okay, so at first, towards the end of last year, the market was anticipating 4 or 5 or 6 possible rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. The data has not supported that over recent times. So there's less of a discussion of that many. They do expect there to be rate cuts in the second half of the year. But why I'm mentioning that to you now is that if nothing happens, we might see the market adjust rates up. even if the Fed hasn't done anything, if that makes any sense, because
Mhm.
if the market forecasts it and it doesn't happen, that means they've overpriced this in. You know, so we could see that. Again, I can't predict rates, but it's not impossible to think that rates could go up depending on economic data. I can't assure you that in a year from now, they would be lower. One thing that I think we didn't do a great job of was the last page. Page 10 is summarizing kind of what these numbers are, what the differences are. And we tried to put a number associated with what's the difference in your debt service payments. If you did 2 financings, you'd have 2 closings, so you'd have some additional costs.
Mhm.
That's something does not favor 2 financings. If you borrowed the money in pieces I mentioned earlier and you didn't get it all up front, you'll earn less interest earnings, even at that 3.5% that we forecasted. So we tried to put something on that, but then also the payments come on less quickly. And what you have in your budget would then be available for other things. So we tried to isolate that. I think one thing that we want to go back and look at here is making sure that we didn't overcomplicate this because we assume certain things about, and I know I'm gonna get in the weeds here a little bit, but certain times when people buy bonds, they bid a certain interest rate and they'll pay a premium for those bonds. Sometimes they'll bid a lower interest rate and bid a discount for those bonds. And that goes into a lot of these rate calculations that we do along the way. So we tried to lay it out for you in a way that kind of puts something next to these different moving variables. I do so, but then we went back and we looked at, let's simplify this a little bit. Let's go back and just simply try and isolate certain things and get to one number. And I still think that number is pretty close to this. I just don't think this sheet outlined it as well now in retrospect as maybe we could have otherwise done that. I may.
So you'll send us an update, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
A couple things that I did want to mention that, again, are not necessarily able to be calculated is that if you do 2 financings,
Mhm.
we're going to need more time of the administration next year to do another credit rating, do another official statement, and things of that nature. So these folks and their teams have to go through it twice, and that would take them away from other things. Again, difficult for me to quantify, but I do want to say that if we do 2 financings, we'll probably need to do that. The one good thing about it would be that when you get to all your bids and the project's going along, and I know you have some other things you want to do and maybe things you won't be able to do or what have you. If you buy yourself a year, we'll be able to have a little bit more information as to how much money you really need. Are you hitting contingencies? Things of that nature, and you have another year to think a little bit about anything else that you may want to do. So that's another thing that you kind of go into it with a little bit more. I know the plan was not to do the bond issue, even if we did it all at once until the bids are in for the big project. But as things go along, it buys the township more time to really figure out, okay, do I need 5 million or do I just need 4 million or do I need 5.5? So that's one thing, again, difficult to put a number on, but just something I thought I should mention as a benefit of doing 2 financings. But then you have to see me again a year from now, so. But we can do those things. I think that's a good idea to try and get something a little bit easier for this last page really to summarize it for you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any better idea when we're going to go out to bid?
I think we're still hoping for middle, end of March.
So are we securing this loan before putting it out to bid or?
I think the idea was to wait till the bids come in and then we'd have a better idea of what we're.
Because we're planning on a $15 million loan, but what if bids come in around, say, 19, 20 million?
Right.
What's the plan?
Yeah, I definitely want to wait. So we put it out to bid mid to end March, and then how long till the bids?
Hopefully say end of April.
Okay,
And then we'd have, and I think in a perfect world, we'd be starting construction June. Now, maybe that optimism doesn't actually come through, but I think because of the volatility in the market and the construction costs, I think that was a suggestion that, actually we had talked about, do you wait to do the financing until after you know what the prices are?
And then I was also wondering, so you guys did have a meeting with the debt rating agency, is that right?
Well, not yet.
Oh, okay, when's that?
Yeah.
We don't have that scheduled just yet.
You wait
One of
till
the
you're
things that
close.
Once we have that meeting, we have committed to the cost and it's not, insubstantial. So until I know for sure that you are ready to go, we probably would suggest that we wait until that. So because I don't want you to incur that cost.
And do you think this will affect our debt rating?
I think you'll be fine. I think you're going to continue to maintain your rating. One thing that, as it was mentioned earlier, you have this in the budget. You were planning for it, you were expecting. So I do not anticipate, but that being said, I have to confess, I haven't read all your audits or financials,
Okay.
since we last went to do this. I guess it was a year and a half ago. So, but I don't think this in itself would be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you suggesting we do anything at the next board meeting? Or
You
not?
want to talk about some of the other kind of housekeeping items?
If you did something our next, yeah, okay, sure. I can
Sorry,
address
yeah,
that.
our next board meeting is only a week away.
Right. And that would be something where you could just kind of authorize us to keep moving along and working on this. It wouldn't commit you to any financing at this point. Just say, hey, continue to work with your solicitor, LaShawn, with your bond counsel at Obermeyer. This kind of gives direction to John that when we ask him for information to do this stuff for the rating agency, that we do that, but the actual ordinance for the debt wouldn't be come till later. And even when that's approved by the board, based on what I've outlined here, there would still be another step before you've committed to the financing. It just kind of gets the ball rolling. This would be
Okay.
next week. Not required. It's just something that's belt and suspenders. We did get in touch with your bond counsel folks at Obermeyer, and they did a great job of putting something together for you. I don't know if it was in the packet or not, but it was the parameters ordinance. I don't know if you remember me mentioning that before,
Mhm.
and that is where the ordinance would set forth certain maximums for the financing to occur, rather than have it scheduled on the one specific date of the month that the commissioners meet. Give you more flexibility to, rather than have, and the example I used last time was your April meetings, the Monday after Easter, right? So that might not be the best day to have gone and sold bonds. I don't think we're going to get there yet, but things like that come up. And what we're seeing more and more local governments in Pennsylvania do these parameters ordinances to not force the bid to occur on a day of a meeting. If you know.
On a day what?
On the day of a commissioners meeting.
Oh, okay.
So you have the ordinance paperwork done in advance and
Mhm.
so forth. So we had a draft at least provided so you could see what this might look like.
Yep.
And there's a lot of blanks in there. You have a lot of things that need to be done, but this is and this ordinance draft contemplates what the township's done in the past. And that is sold bonds versus a competitive sale on the internet. That's kind of what the township's used in the past. We can talk more about that, but I just wanted to make sure this is based on what you've done in the past. This is what something like this might look like. And I do again want to thank the Obermeyer team. They put this together pretty quickly. And
So you say we've done this in the past. Was there another option we should consider?
what you had done in the past was actually take the bid on the day of a commissioner.
Oh, okay.
So
got it.
what we're suggesting, or for your consideration, is that rather than do that, consider this parameters ordinance.
Oh, got
idea.
you. Okay.
So there's more flexibility. I'm
Okay,
doing the
sounds
sale,
good.
but I wouldn't want to wake up on a Monday morning of a meeting that you have scheduled to take your bids and something happen.
Got it.
Something unfortunate happened over the weekend whereby the market isn't, it gives us a little more flexibility. This is very important. So we don't want to box ourselves into one particular day. You can plan for it,
Okay.
but it's just the thought was here as well, just to give you an idea of what it might look like. There are a lot of blanks to fill in. And one of the things you could do, for example, is authorize an ordinance for the larger amount of money, because you can always go down, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So if the bids came in and, you had decided that you wanted to do not 15, but 10, like the bank qualified for various reasons, you could do that. Can't go up. You can only go down. And typically these parameters ordinances, even if you wanted 15 million, you'd probably even make the number bigger. Because when the bids come in, Brandy's gonna have to work her magic and make sure that the payments, are level for you over a 30-year period, and every piece of the bond changes. So it's kind of like you have to
Okay,
have some flexibility.
so are we gonna have to decide the parameters before the bids come in? We'll at least have to decide that parameter.
So if the bids go out in, let's say, mid-March, let's say end of March.
Right.
Let's say the bids don't come in until the middle or end of April,
Right.
which means the earliest the board would be formally approving would be at the May meeting.
That's fine.
So if we backed into that, what would that
Right.
look like?
I think you just do it at the May meeting.
Okay,
So if that's the bid thing, we can do the parameters at the May meeting. Right? And then we would have the bond sale or the auction or whatever shortly thereafter.
okay.
Keeping in mind from when we actually price the bonds to when you close. In that scenario, if you're the May 6th?
You say the end of April is when we get the bids.
Yeah. And then if the commissioners meet May, I don't know what that month.
Early,
is.
first Monday in May.
Yeah, you could sell bonds at the middle part of May and then you get your money in June,
Okay,
typically 30 days after. Hopefully that would be sufficient.
yeah, I think so. Does that sound like the way to go?
That feels like it
Okay,
makes sense, yeah.
But I don't think we're gonna need this in April.
Okay, yeah,
Don't
so there's nothing, so far, we don't need anything at the next board meeting, except we're just continuing.
Just a nod.
Yeah.
to Okay,
that really wouldn't even be a resolution or anything, I guess, Sean. It's really just kind of approval to keep moving.
Yeah.
Okay,
All perfect.
yeah.
you guys have
Good.
any? Matt, John?
Did that take care of all the questions that you had?
I think it did, yeah, I do want to see an update,
Okay.
of the numbers, and yeah, I think we do need to decide, and any input you guys have, whether we do the one bond or the two.
Right.
This year, next year, so thank
Great.
you for being here again.
Yeah.
Community, any comments? Okay,
All right.
thank you, Brad. Okay, next on the agenda is the Clifton Larson Allen LLP audit fee schedule.
Take this.
Yeah, sure. So after speaking with the township's auditors, they proposed an adjusted audit fee schedule as all professional services costs continue to rise. I provided the committee with, I asked CLA to provide a history of those expenses over the few years prior, so that you could see.
Yeah, that was helpful. So I do remember prior, I thought we had like a 2 or 3 year contract at one point, but now I guess we've just been the last 2 years, just annual. So they've gone up a lot.
Well, this next year, we're gonna have to have a single audit due to the federal money we got for the FEMA grant.
Oh, so that's one reason it went up? Well, it went up in 2023.
Well, I mean, it's gonna go up again this coming year in part because of the single audit. I don't know if there was anything else, or is it just kind of general increases and then the single audit?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
So, yeah, what do you mean, single
So
audit?
single audit is a term they use for, it's basically a whole nother report that needs to be issued when a municipality spends a specific dollar amount of federal money that they've received.
So we hit that last year.
I think it's 800,000.
It's, I want to say it's 750, but that was triggered with all of the FEMA amounts.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So it makes the audit more expensive.
I see. Well, at least there's a reason, because it has gone up a lot for actually, it went up a lot in 2022 also, and now. Okay. Oh, because that was with the ARPA money too, in 2022.
So just to remind you, I mean, I think we're happy with this firm. They've done a good job, but the board does have the option of choosing someone else.
Well, that was my question, if you guys think we should get some other bids for this work.
I would think we go through this year, maybe.
My opinion would be to go through this year for it. They're familiar with the team. We're close to, especially with the work that was put into the 22 audit, and that kind of drug along a little bit. I'd be more comfortable, and I think the rest of the finance team would be more comfortable dealing with the individuals that they've been working with on a daily basis. I haven't heard anything to the contrary on that. So I think that we should continue with this one and then
Maybe next
that's
year.
after
Okay.
for audit.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Either you have any comments?
So am I reading this right? It looks like almost a 20% increase in fees. Yeah. Did they give an explanation? Because that's not just like, inflationary cost. That's
It includes that, but also at the same time, I think a lot of their other audit engagements that the firms are using. So the term they use is realization, and they're looking at their billable hours versus the amount of time that is spent on specific audits, and whatever internal matrix they have in their firm, their realization is on the lower end. So partners are typically lead. So I was speaking with Andy Lee, who's the principal on the account, and then speaking with him, let him know that this is on the higher end for what we would expect. But then going back and forth on, and I tried to include those realization numbers that he saw. So basically, they're putting in a lot of work and not seeing the same.
Or they're saying
as
for us,
have
our
other
account
jobs.
specifically,
Yep.
it's been a lot of time.
Mhm. But then had mentioned specifically to continue the professional relationship with the township because they've been so invested already and enjoy working with us as well.
Can I say something? If that's the case, well, why don't they lower the price?
Well, that goes to this whole piece. I mean, what we're gonna try and do this year is, I feel like the audit last year drug, so now this year's realization, we would expect to be a lot higher on their end because they're not gonna be putting in as much of the work as they were in prior years. If we get them all this stuff faster once we approve going forward with this, and this is still a tentative amount, all the amounts, the dollar amounts will be fixed as a result of the engagement letter that we would still have to get. So these aren't locked in. So if there's anything
Oh, okay.
back, this isn't like a solid, here's the professional services fee, we're going to agree to this amount, but just a tentative proposed schedule.
So I am okay with this, but I do think next year we should get some other bids.
Mhm.
Make sure there's still market.
I'm
What do you
locking a
think?
contract too. I think we need a contract.
Yeah, in the
all about
past, we
contract.
I thought we did a 3-year
We
contract.
got, yeah, and I'll talk to them about that as well and see.
Okay. Maybe they'll give us a better rate if we'll sign a 3-year contract. with
Sure.
them, too. Okay. Ben,
yeah, nothing further.
okay. Anyone in the community? Okay, thank you, John.
Yep.
All right, next is proposal to perform inspection and testing of hazardous waste materials on the township building.
So this is the continuing design process, and because the township building is an older building, we've got to do a hazardous materials evaluation. And Eagle Industrial Hygiene Associates, you may recognize that name because we just approved for them for the FEMA buyout houses over on Surrey and Lori. And they're a reputable company, they do good work. And so this would essentially tell us what materials here would need to be remediated. That would need to go into the bid document. So hopefully whoever the contractor is would have to take care of that.
Okay. So, and it's.
I will say this,
Yeah,
it's a little frustrating because we may not do this building, but I think we need to do it to get
The
accurate bid
bids.
numbers.
okay.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, but I'm good.
Yeah, we may not get totally accurate numbers if we don't have it included in there.
Okay. Okay, you're good with that?
Yeah.
Ben,
Fine with me.
any, Kip?
Yeah, I got the call on this and especially Matt Hocker's done all the other buildings we've torn down and everything else. He's well versed on all the stuff that we've done that way. And he is the one that said, let's go with Eagle for it. And yeah, and if we don't, we could run into a lot of problems later
Sure.
because of the pricing and all that stuff. So that way, get it done now. At least we know everything, you know, for what we're going to end up with doing and all that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We'll move that forward too. Next is proposal for police station / township building furniture's design services.
This is separate from KCBA,
Mhm.
but they had recommended this firm. And this is to do exactly what it says. So, the police station will need furniture. Township building will need furniture. And so this is a proposal to prepare the design for, both those buildings.
It is for both the buildings. I wasn't real clear when I read the letter. In some places, it seemed to say one building and
Should be both.
it's for both. And we have to do both again to get an accurate bid.
Right.
Okay. And it's 7,200.
And that will actually be a separate bid from the construction bid.
Mhm.
But the reason they want that design is they try and put that into the plans of where desks are going and just so
Mhm.
people make sure the outlets are going in the right places and we're not. So they like having the furniture plans in the plans when they're building it, just to double check to make sure they're doing things the way it should be done. But the bid for furniture would be separate.
Okay.
I have a question. So is this basically a plan or design as to where furniture, they're not designing actual furniture, they're designing where to put furniture.
Both. So they're actually not designing it. We would tell them we want mid-grade office furniture. We kind of give them our specs.
Right.
They then give us options, you know, design, and then we pick those and then they kind of lay them out. So it's coming up with a layout and then identifying the actual product that we would be, and they would be putting together essentially what would amount to a bid document that we could then go out to a vendor, and they may even have suggestions for vendors that we could use. Also, what we could do is they can buy on CoStar too. So the easier way is just to go ahead and buy it on CoStars, which is what we would suggest. So you could do it either way.
What is,
Oh, it's a purchasing co-op, I guess for lack of a better word, at the state level, so you don't have to go out to bid. So oftentimes we'll buy police cars or other vehicles on CoStars. It's already been bid by the state of Pennsylvania. So it just satisfies that requirement for bidding. So it makes purchasing a lot easier and streamlined. So we can do it either way. I would recommend obviously that we do purchase on CoStars. It's just a lot easier to do, but we would have that option.
Okay, I'm good with moving that forward. You both?
Good.
Okay, next, no old business, no new business, any community comments besides what we've discussed? Any commissioner comments? Okay, we're adjourned, this committee.
John?
yeah. Yeah, I'll do it. Just stop me if I'm doing it wrong. I'm not good with Roman numerals.
Are you sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
In there, whenever,
I'm sorry.
whenever.
Yeah, I think just call to order when you're ready.
All right, so we will call to order the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting on February 26, 2024. I am Commissioner Olszewski. To my left is Commissioner Benvenuti, with Township Manager Matt Camlin, Pat Stasio, Head of Parks and Rec, and Solicitor Sean Kilkenny. All right, any presentations or announcements?
There are none.
All right, so the first item will be the approval of the minutes from the January Parks and Rec meeting. Anthony, anything to add or
No,
either?
make a motion to approve.
Yep, any other commissioner comments? Public comments? All right. Moving on to the acceptance and approval of the following monthly reports. First is the Parks and Rec report. Pat?
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Before you is the January 2024 Parks and Recreation Monthly Report. I'm going to highlight a couple of items, and then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond to them. On the administration side, we submitted for some reimbursements for some grants, DCNR and also NIFWIF. We've received the NIFWIF grant. It was a little less than $300,000, the reimbursement request. And I applied for $200,000 reimbursement from DCNR. The NIFWIF grant, this is all for Farmstead Environmental Project. The NIFWIF grant will still owe us about $38,000 once the project is complete. DCNR will owe us about another $133,000 once the project is complete. So we're allowed to request certain percentages as the project is ongoing. We've done that. So that is moving forward. We did also request the $200,000 reimbursement for the purchase of Woodlawn School, the old Woodlawn School. That was another DCNR grant. That has all been submitted. I don't think we've received them as yet. Okay. We continue to work on the carriage house out at Farmstead Park. General contractor and subcontractors are out there working. Kate and I visit that site regularly along with our architects as well. The project had some delays due to weather and some materials. We expect that a majority of that project will be done by mid-March. We'll have to wait about 30 or 40 days till the weather's conducive to do some masonry work. Spring Township newsletter is complete. It is being printed and it should be mailed out within the next 2 weeks. So I ask everyone up Moreland, please look for it in your mailbox. On the recreation side, we are bringing back our pickleball tournament. Last year was our first pickleball tournament ever. We had several hundred people participate. This year will be April 12th to the 14th at Masonsville Park. The information is on our website, uppermorelandrec.com, if you're interested in participating. I know summer is a little ways off for our supervised playground program, but Kate and Jen have been working diligently on preparing the summer schedules for all of our summer camp programs. Those registrations for summer camps start 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today at 9 in the morning. That program houses about 350 kids, plus or minus 320 kids, I'm sorry. And it will fill up probably within the first 15 minutes. So if you want to get in that program, get online 2 weeks from today at 9 in the morning. And we offered a polar pants in February, even though this is our January report, but it sold out. We had 150 kids, and I'll give you an update on that next month. On the maintenance division, crews were performing a lot of snow plowing events during January. We do the township municipal complex here. We also do the firehouses. We do municipal parking lots, and then all of the sidewalks that are owned by Moreland Township. Our crews are out there taking care of that. We had some issues with water running off of the hill at Woodlawn Park. So we made some remediations there. A neighbor had some complaints and we worked with the neighbor to ensure that that's working. And we did remove the roller hockey rink at Veterans Memorial Park. That work is completed. We're adding topsoil and seed and matting so that it'll hold in place. And then we'll, instead of having a roller hockey rink, we'll have a nice open grass area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
No questions, just a comment. I think it's great that we have, summer programs, affordable summer programs for kids in our township. Is it open to just kids in the township or is it?
The supervised playground program is open to just Upper Moreland residents.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Anthony, anything?
No questions. All good.
All right, any other commissioner comments? Or public comments? All right, we'll move on to the library board and the trustees report.
Good evening, I'm Maureen Winnick, Ward 4. I've been a trustee for almost 4 years and I'm serving as president currently. Thank you, everyone. I see many of you have your social media platforms and you have our library happenings for March already posted. And if you can make sure that that does get to your constituents, we appreciate it. There's a lot of activity going on at the library, and this is really a great snapshot for what's happening each month. So thank you so much. The library is actually celebrating our 10th year as a registered family place library. A family place library, it's a place where we help parents of young children access the resources they need to grow strong, healthy kids that are ready for school. So the library supports families through workshops, connecting parents with community resources and experts, and providing a gathering space at the library for parents and kids to learn and play together. So I actually brought my grandson to one of our programs where we had a guest speaker from Giant come and talk about nutrition, and it had the opportunity for the kids to play. And so it was a great opportunity for people to learn something new while the children had a chance to play and our community had a chance to interact with one another. There is more information on our website if you're interested in learning more about what a family place is. And it is a national program that we're a part of. We have our library challenge for the grades 3 to 8 is starting on Friday, March 1st. It is called I Did a Read, and it's a play off of the Iditarod, and which is a 1,000-mile dog sled, is a dog sled race. And we are asking the children to complete the challenge, and they have to read 1 minute for every mile. This is happening between March 1st and April 12th. And so the reading is only about a little less than half an hour a day for them to complete the challenge. So everyone who registers gets a reading buddy pup, and all the students who cross the finish line, they get entered into into a raffle for a cuddly stuffed sled dog. So you can sign up at the library to do that. Finally, I just want to report something for 2023. We had over 36,600 in-person visits to the library and more than 90,000 visits to the library website. And I think it's really important for us to realize like the impact of the library for the community. I know earlier we had talked about the tax bills had come out. And when I looked at what my portion of the library would be, it's probably what it would cost for me to buy 4 books maybe over the course of a year. And so if you think about how many books that you can get for the cost of what your taxes are paying for the library, it's a pretty good deal that we have here in Upper Moreland. So again, we're just really proud to be a resource for the community, and I just wanted to share that information. So that is it. Thank you again for all of your support for the library. And do you have any questions?
And not to mention, you get books, video games, I think some home appliances or,
Board games.
Yeah.
You could rent a
Puzzles.
Dremel, a sewing machine.
Yeah.
You could check out all these great items. So yeah, we are a wonderful resource for this community.
I also wanted to, I don't know if we formally thanked the library for partnering with us on the tutoring program.
Yes.
I don't know if we had a very successful tutoring program last year, getting ready to gear up again this year. And so we appreciate you guys accommodating them. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're really proud to be here. Any other questions? Thank you.
all right, any commissioner comments? Public comments? All right, next on to old business, the Mill Creek Park Pico lines.
Thank you, Commissioner. The agenda item summary has changed since it was created last week a little bit, but along Mill Road and Bonnet Lane at Mill Creek Park, there are some utility poles. And the wires run directly through Mill Creek Park from Mill Road to Bonnet Lane to over behind, I believe it's St. Dunstan's. This is behind the In-N-Out on York Road. One of the concerns the township had was that we have low-hanging utility lines in our parks. And years ago, we started working with PICO to see what we could do about that. Our Bonnet Lane Park Master Plan includes widening Mill Road, which is not owned by the township, and also removing sections of Bonnet Lane. We told the folks in the neighborhood that we would not remove Bonnet Lane sections until we widen Mill Road, because it creates some traffic jams and backups. That's the introduction to this. So we applied, yes.
Sorry, Pat, who is Mill Road owned by?
I think Mill Road is a state road.
State
I
road.
believe it's a state road. If it's not state, it's county. Last year, we applied for a grant well in excess of $1 million to begin this project, knowing fully that we would have to speak with PennDOT and others about the road. We were not awarded the million, but we were awarded $250,000. So we revised our scope and resubmitted, and they accepted our submission. The resubmission is to remove all of the wires that traverse Mill Road Park from Mill Road all the way across Bonnet Lane. They're right near our basketball courts there, if you're familiar with that area. Pico met out there with Dave Elsier. I was on vacation that week and came up with a plan which is in front of you. Our traffic engineers have reviewed it. The initial concept was to bury the lines, but Pico would prefer to not bury them and to move them to right behind the in and out. There's an alleyway right there, which would be outside of our park or right on the border of the park. So they submitted this plan and it's here for your review. I asked Pico what the cost of that would be. They have not given it back to us, but the traffic engineer and the Pico reps did not feel it would be over $250,000 at all. So what I want to do is just bring this to your attention, answer any questions you might have. Once I get the final number from Pico, and if there's any Verizon lines or Comcast lines or anybody else, we can get this package before you. Again, this will be a no cost to the township. We expect. If it comes in significantly higher, then we may want to reconsider our position. But that was what the purpose of this was for.
I have a question. So, would it cost too much to bury the lines underground?
I think after talking with the traffic engineer, we don't necessarily want the lines under our fields in case whatever we're going to do in the future.
Okay.
So if we want to install a soccer field here, that would include a lot of earth movement.
All right.
And it seemed like the prudent thing at this time not to bury the lines.
And what's the alternative to burying the lines?
They're gonna move them. If you look at the diagram, the gray square in the middle is the basketball courts. So the blue line to the left of the basketball courts will move over to the blue line to the right of the basketball courts, which is directly behind the shopping center. So they're just essentially moving them about 60, 70 yards. Then our whole park will have a clear aerial. There'll be nothing overhead. Again, if it's no cost to the township and Pico will perform this work and the grant will pay for the work, I think this is something we certainly want to act on. I requested those numbers 2 weeks ago. I have not received them as yet. So I don't think there's any action or anything that needs to be done. Just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. All right, any other commissioner comments? Public comments? Right, moving on to new business. The Department of Community and Economic Development grant application for Woodlawn Park.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last year, we applied for some grants for Woodlawn Park for the development of the park after the township completed its master plan, which was a direct result of community input, that plan. We did receive the Land and Water Conservation Grant for $1.25 million. We're still waiting on the contracts for that. However, we applied for $200,000 from Department of Community and Economic Development. We did not receive that grant. I'd like to reapply. In fact, tomorrow afternoon, I have a phone call with DCED to discuss what areas where our grant could use some boosting. So I fully expect after that discussion tomorrow and all the great information that we have for this project that we will apply and be awarded. So I need approval to apply. Approval also means we need a resolution. So I'm going to ask the board to move forward with this. The alternative would be we don't seek $200,000. We already have the matching funds in hand. So there'll be no additional cost to Upper Moreland Township.
All right. So when okay, so we got denied in 2023.
Yeah, I think that the denials came out. Well, the awards came out in, I want to say November or December. We were not on that.
Okay, they don't give reasoning, or it's just.
You have to call them and ask them.
Gotcha. Okay, Cheryl?
Just thank you, Pat, for continuing to apply for grants for that project.
Absolutely.
Big help.
We need it, yes. I would also, as you consider, if you're going to move this forward, last month, the board approved going after a Monco grant for Woodlawn Park as well. That will also require a resolution. So if we move this forward, I would ask the solicitor to prepare two resolutions, one for the Monco grant, and I can send over the amount for that. And then this one would be for 200,000. I think the Monco is going to be around 225,000. We should, just additional information, both of those we should find out either this summer or this fall if they move forward. My intention, and we're going to discuss this at a future meeting here in the next month or two, is to bid the project this year, Woodlawn Park Master Plan, at some point late fall. And I want to award it, and I would like that the project starts next spring and concludes next fall. That's my goal.
All right, so, Anthony, I'm okay moving this forward. You?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, any, commissioner comments? Public comments? Okay, all right, on to, we have a few retirement announcements, from the Parks and Recs Department.
Yes, both happy and sad announcements. Karen O'Brien is leaving our department, and I believe the manager sent an email out, as did I. Karen started with us over 20 years ago and has moved around in the township in the last several years, has been back with Parks and Recreation, and has been a great asset to our department. She is retiring on March 8th. And Jim Murphy, who's our parks foreman, came to us, I want to say 2008. Outstanding employee, really changed the culture of the maintenance division. Jim will be missed. We did fill his shoes from within. Joe Riley is going to take over. Jim is retiring on March 14th. So we wish them both well.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, with that, any, visitor comments? Any final commissioner comments? All right, we are adjourned.